In this video, I'm going to be philosophizing on direct perception threat concerning the distinctions between minor and or more serious threats, be it that direct perception is most meaningful to define threat and to, within the self, appropriately evaluate the existing threat and or non-existing threat, be it the threat is non-existing. This is perhaps to the other most of meaningful concern to be able to address the underlying, most likely, dysfunctions within mind-body connections, perceiving to the individual whom is perceiving a non-existing threat to be a threat, engaging in often symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and or other stress-related disorders, causing unduly unnecessary psychological distress. Had the individual come to the self-knowledge and or self-awareness the threat is irrational and or non-existing, be it an impossibility to cause harm and or injury, would not experience the byproducts and or residual negative causations inflicting harm and or injury and or future threat to the individual, deteriorating and or degenerating and or inflicting serious harm, causing chronic injury to the mind-body connections, domain-specific to the perception of a non-existing threat. In actuality, factuality, the threat exists within the minor threat to the mind-body connections threatened, yet the individual whom is engaging in one's own panic and or paranoia and or psychiatric delusions as to constitute a psychotic delusion, one should seek psychiatric care, is a threat mostly to oneself. Meaning that there is more of a serious threat, not that it's necessarily necessary to constitute a serious threat, yet it may constitute a serious threat, be it that one is engaging in more extreme precautions to prevent a threat to which only exists in the mind, not necessarily the mind-body connections of an individual, perceiving it to be existing, yet has no rational justification and or excuse to justify the threat. In comparison to an individual whom is engaging in meaningful work to perhaps engage in some sort of home renovation, let's say, may perceive some minor threats in terms of maybe not having the appropriate equipment to engage a specific component part or process of a step-by-step self-task one is engaging in terms of their own home renovations, involving power tools, increasing the risk to a vastness and range in terms of minor to more serious threats, distinct tools and or equipments amongst the calibrated self-tasks one is engaging hold distinct threats to the individual. Maybe engaging the appropriate proportionate judgment in evaluating threat, experiencing little to no psychological distress, yet holds meaningful concern. The meaningful concern meaning that one can recognize the threat as a threat, yet is not necessarily experiencing psychological distress, and or maybe more likely to engage in the conducts and or thinking to prevent threats and or proactively mitigate the risk of threat and or injury and or harm in relation to the direct perception of threat, meaning that one is cognizant of the threat and is able to more meaningfully engage the intra-categorical and or inter-categorical effectivenesses and or efficiencies to prevent harm and or treat unduly caused unnecessary psychological distress within domain-specific mind-body connections. That's all I want to say for this video. Hope you have an awesome one. Keep moving up.